Hi YouTube, it's Autumn. So this is my video of what happened to me after I had my daughter. I had my daughter February 9th, and exactly 4 weeks later, I just finished dinner with my husband. And if I didn't mention it in my previous videos, my husband is Jordanian, and his mother makes the best food. She uses, unfortunately, a lot of spices and oil. So she made this dish, and it had potatoes, cauliflower, chicken, and rice, and it's all fried and then cooked in a pot and then flipped over. It's called upside down. So it's really, really good. And immediately after eating it, I was doing the dishes and I had the most intense heartburn. And even when I was pregnant, I didn't get that much heartburn. So this was pretty bad. So I went and got some Tums, and I popped a couple of them, and not even the slightest bit of relief. So I just kept taking more, and it got to the point where I was like in tears, and my husband was just telling me, he's like, just drink milk, you know, try that. I drank the milk, and immediately I felt like, okay, I need to throw up. So I went to the bathroom to throw up, and it just, nothing was happening. Eventually the only thing that came out was the milk that I just drank, and I tried to lay on my left side on the bathroom floor. And at that moment, I thought to myself, could this be my gallbladder? Because I've heard of a lot of people that after they have a baby, they have to have their gallbladder removed. A couple friends of mine had that happen, but I mean, I didn't know what the pain was. It wasn't in my stomach, and it felt like heartburn. And I thought, even, not that I've ever had a heart attack before, but this must be what it would feel like. So my husband had to get the baby ready because I couldn't do anything. I was in so much pain, and rushed me to the emergency room. My mother-in-law had to meet us there because I didn't want the baby in the emergency room. And so my parents also met me there so that my dad, my husband, could take the baby home in our car seat, have my mother-in-law follow, and my husband could come back with the car. Because my mother-in-law was with me for 2 weeks after the delivery. She just went home maybe the week before, and now I needed her to watch the baby again while I was in the emergency room. As soon as I got into the emergency room, they did an EKG, and they put me in like a separate waiting room, and the ER doctor was so rude. You know, they ask you your pain level, and I was at a 10, and he was just such a jerk. He's like, well, your pain's at a 10, but you're talking to me right now, it's worse than childbirth. And I was like, yeah, it's worse than childbirth, because even contractions, you get a little bit of a break, a little bit, even if it's seconds. This pain was so intense, it felt like somebody was stabbing me consistently over and over in the chest. They didn't know what was wrong with me. They did a urine test, and they took blood. They also did an ultrasound. They were going to do an ultrasound. So they came back, and the ER doctor, he felt kind of bad. I could tell when he came back in, and he goes, you know, I'm really sorry. Actually, in his exact words, you have a pretty gnarly urinary tract infection. And I was kind of disturbed by that, just because I went to my OB, I believe 2 weeks, or no, not 2 weeks, a couple days before, because I went back to work on a Friday, and you know what, it might have been 2 weeks. Either way, I went back to my OB, and normally they would check my urine every visit, and this visit they didn't. So I was kind of irritated that I would have had such a bad urinary tract infection, and they wouldn't have checked to know. So I had that, and then they said something really strange. They said, your liver enzymes are really high. And I had no idea what that meant. So they said, we're going to admit you, and we're going to do some other testing to see what's wrong. So with the pain, they decided, since they were admitting me, and it wasn't my heart, because the EKG eliminated that, they did the x-ray and then they were planning on doing the ultrasound that night. So I had my husband go home just because he was there for so long and he had to go to work the next day. And my mother-in-law was with my daughter, so I mean, what was I going to do? I was in the emergency room and they were admitting me. So they gave me morphine and the pain subsided immediately. And they were taking me up to a room, and as they were taking me up to a room, they decided, let's go do the ultrasound right now. They did the ultrasound, and then they put me in my room, and the next day they came and they said, it looks like you have some cysts on your kidneys, but apparently that's normal to have cysts on your kidneys. They didn't know why my liver enzymes were so high. They tested my blood again the next morning and they were still really high. And doing some research, my husband and I, we kind of came to the conclusion that it was really strange for me to have high liver enzymes, because usually that only happens with someone who is a heavy drinker, and clearly I was not even consuming any alcohol because I was breastfeeding. So that was the other issue with being in the ER. I had to have my husband bring me my breast pump so that I could still pump. Even though I wasn't exclusively breastfeeding, I still wanted to continue. So after that, they still were not too sure what was going on. They had a surgeon come in and they had mentioned maybe it's my gallbladder. So they wanted me to go for a CAT scan. And then they wanted me to go for an MRI to see if there were any stones in my bile duct, because apparently if they take out your gallbladder and you still have stones in there, it can cause issues. So they didn't find any in my bile duct, so they said, we'll go ahead and do the surgery. Then they canceled it because my liver enzymes were too high, and they figured that if they did the surgery, that would only make them go higher. So I had to stay in the hospital for a week, pretty much. Finally, they did the surgery, and unfortunately, when I woke up from the surgery, I had the same exact pain from when I came to the ER. And instead of morphine, they gave me Dilaudid, and that just made me totally crazy. They just didn't understand what I was saying, how I had so much pain and it wouldn't stop. They had to keep giving me more Dilaudid to help the pain go away. And they said it was totally normal, that I would have that pain and it would eventually go away. So they sent me home with Prilosec and Vicodin. And that morning, because they didn't want to send me home on Dilaudid, I guess, they didn't want to put any in my IV and then send me home, so they switched me over to Vicodin. And I still felt the pain, and they just assured me that it would go away. So I got released, and seeing my daughter was so amazing. I was so afraid she wasn't going to remember me because it had been a week. But she remembered me. Unfortunately, though, I still had the pain. If I wasn't back to back with my Vicodin, I would feel the pain. And I was extremely afraid to eat because it seemed like anytime I ate, mostly dinner, it would flare up really, really bad. To the point where every single night I still had my mother-in-law with me because I couldn't take care of my daughter myself. I was in so much pain. And being on the pain meds, I couldn't function too well either. Every night I would tell my husband, I want to go back to the emergency room. And he would tell me, they're not going to do anything for you. This is totally normal. When I say that they told me it was totally normal, it's because they were assuming that what I had was a gas pain. Usually people, when they have surgery, gallbladder removal, you'll get gas bubbles that go up to your shoulder blades or between your shoulder blades. So that's what they were assuming the pain was, and that's why they were prescribing Prilosec. And it was unusual that pain medication would make that go away if it was gas. So after being out of the hospital for maybe 4 days. I had a follow-up appointment with the surgeon, and it was on a Wednesday, and I was released on a Friday from the hospital. So from Friday then to Wednesday, I went to go see the surgeon that performed the gallbladder surgery. And he had explained to me the risks, and he was a very nice doctor. And when I went to go see him, I told him, I said, every time I eat dinner, I feel the same intense pain, and I want to go back to the emergency room. And he said to me, oh, come on, you're not serious. And I was like, yeah, I am serious. The pain is that bad. And he said, well, because you had pancreatitis, which I didn't know I had pancreatitis, but apparently that's what was causing the pain. He said, you know, you can continue on the pain meds. It's totally fine. And just be careful what you eat. Maybe it's something that you're eating. Now, what I was eating was chicken broth, vegetable broth, Jell-O, pudding, anything soft. For dinner, I would have grilled chicken and vegetables and maybe mashed potatoes. And I thought it was because my mother-in-law was making the food. Maybe she was putting spices in it or something. So that night when I went home, I made my own food, grilled chicken, vegetables, and potatoes. And within minutes of eating it, the pain was back. I took a pain pill and nothing. And I had enough. So my husband took me again to the emergency room, and luckily my mother-in-law was still there. She hadn't gone home yet, so she was with the baby. I went back to the emergency room, and they performed all the same tests, and they did not know what was wrong with me or why I was having this intense pain. My liver enzymes were high again. They were really, really high. What they concluded from my last visit was that I had probably got a what they call a postpartum infection, probably from the catheter, and that's what caused the urinary tract infection, and then the gallbladder issue. So I was just a mess. And even, you know, since I had my daughter, I wasn't feeling that great, but I didn't know any different because I'd never given birth before. I never had a C-section before. I didn't know what was normal and what wasn't. And really my incision didn't seem like it was healing that well either. Like I said, I had gone to my OB and they said everything was fine. Then the second visit to the emergency room, like I said, my liver enzymes were high. The emergency room doctor, again, it wasn't the same one, but it was another one, and he was a total asshole too. Didn't believe my pain. I explained everything that happened last time, and after they tested my blood again and found out that my liver enzymes were high, and they didn't know why, he decided to go ahead and give me morphine because he wanted to give me Vicodin. And I told him it's not going to work because I already took one. So they gave me the morphine, and very strangely, when they gave me the morphine, it moved the pain from right in my chest to under my right breast. It dulled it a little bit, but more so moved it. So they ordered another set of x-rays, another ultrasound. We went to the ultrasound, and I remember the ultrasound tech, she said, hold on a minute, and she went and she got on the phone, and I heard her talking to someone explaining my case and what she saw, and it was really nothing. I mean, they didn't see anything unusual. So I was in the hospital again for almost a week, and what they finally decided to do, my surgeon came to see me, and he was really, I could tell he was really disappointed and upset because he had seen me that day and pretty much dismissed my pain. He said, I talked to some colleagues of mine, and we think that you have a stone lodged somewhere, and it got loose when we did your cholecystectomy. So we're going to do what's called an ERCP, which they would have done an ERCP if they found stones in my bile duct, but they didn't. So they didn't see a need to do it. So this time they decided to do an ERCP where they just go in through your throat, and they make a bigger slit in your sphincter, in case there are any stones or bile, and then it'll just pass through. So they did the ERCP, and again when I woke up I had the same pain. And so they had to keep pumping me with morphine because I was just like, I can't take the pain, it's the same. It was ridiculous. So I stayed in the hospital for almost a week, and this time they had me try solid food before I went home. The first time I was just on liquids, so I didn't get to see how food affected it. They assume what happened is that a stone did escape and it got lodged, and doing the ERCP would allow it to come out. They can't prove it. It happens in 1% of cases. So I just happen to be that 1%. So I was fine after that from eating. They sent me home, and again it was just bittersweet to see my daughter. And this whole time it felt like I didn't get to be a mom even, because the first 2 weeks I had my mother-in-law with me. And then the next 2 weeks, I mean, I was still, you know, I wasn't feeling well, but I was doing my best, I guess. And then for another 2 weeks, I was in the hospital. So, I'm totally fine now. It's been, you know, about a month, and, I've been able to spend time with my daughter. I've been able to eat and not have this pain. So, it's great, but it's just funny because nobody tells you these things. Nobody tells you that, you know, after you have a baby, you could have this. I mean, people talk about it, having their gallbladder removed, but it just seems like, you know, you don't need your gallbladder, it's not a big deal. But they don't talk about, you know, an attack like this or pain like this, and it's disappointing to have that happen. And then you feel like no one knows what's wrong with you. So I did, after surgery, after the ERCP, I went to another doctor just to have my liver enzymes checked, and they had gone down. So hopefully I'm okay and that won't happen again, but I just figured I should do a video about it in case anyone else has a similar scenario, or, you know, what you could be prepared for after you have a baby. So thanks for watching, guys.